doing?
Tumbleweed can't hold it as he gets pinned against
Don't
the
do,
rail.
don't do that.
As they approach
Let him out.
Captain Video makes his move.
No,
Tumbleweed
I need this one.
lead, but Captain
Please.
Video seems just a little bit
Come
too
on.
strong. Here they come.
No.
Yes, Tumbleweed can't hold it as Captain Video takes charge, and it's Brewster finishing in second. Susan's Pride finishes third, and Tumbleweed is nowhere in sight. But my, oh my, the odds-on favorite showed his true colors with that late stretch run. Tumbleweed held on momentarily, but realistically, only a fool would put their money on Tumbleweed. That horse had no chance of...
That guy won 2 gold medals?
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, Clint McLean. And boy, are we coming off of a rough week. We have been waiting so long for the UFC to get back, so we've got something to bet on, and we just shit the bed that quick at UFC DC. Buckle in, ladies and gentlemen. I have a whole lot to talk about. We've got UFC 245 coming up. A whole lot happened at UFC DC that we got to wrap up and talk about, and the amount of good and excellent, solid fights and betting opportunities at UFC 245 means you're going to be hearing this voice for a decent chunk of time tonight. So let's get this party started. The first thing that I've got to do, though, is say we were so close. I set the goal for last week to get to 50 likes on the YouTube video for UFC DC, and we got 49. We have 373 views at the time of recording and 49 thumbs up. We wanted 50, so one of you go poke last week's video real quick for me so we can get there. I'm going to set this week's goal at 60. Now, I know we were just shy of last week's goal, so I should probably leave it the same, but let's be real. UFC 245 is huge. The amount of views, listens, and clicks that we're going to get on this episode is much, much higher than normal. So I feel like I'm being reasonable going at 60 instead of reaching for the stars and going for 75 or something. So do your guy a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you like the content, because we are breaking down all the betting action for mixed martial arts and making people cash, and we're going to roll right on doing that into next year. I'm going to shout out some of our new subscribers. We've got Tony Sal 645 who joined the Die Hards. We have Little Master 4Card Tard who has subscribed here on YouTube, and we've got Arash Aramazadeh. I apologize for butchering your last name. I'm sure I said it terribly. Welcome to the Die Hards, everybody. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. And as you all know, the usual thing with YouTube, lots of thumbs up, lots of comments, subscribe. It really gets things out there. The algorithms that YouTube runs, the more people that give it the thumbs up, the more they suggest it to other people liking the same kind of content. So let's spread the word. Let's get this thing out there. 2020 is going to be a big year for the Die Hards. Enough of that technical stuff. UFC DC. Oh boy. We started off rough, and I was pretty upset about this. So first, let me tell you all, I had to give myself at least a little bit of a pat on the back because honestly, I feel like I broke down this card almost perfectly last week. You know, one of the podcasts that I used to listen to, or actually still do listen to, but one of the ones that really inspired me to start podcasting myself is the Dog or Pass podcast. Go check them out. I'm a huge fan of those guys over there. But what they do is what they call a Pogie Rob Parlay. And basically, they pick every single fight on the card, and you throw like a buck on it. It's a wild long shot. If you sweep the whole card, obviously the odds are ridiculous. It pays out massively if you pick it right top to bottom. Well, then you go back and you trim it down a little bit. You take out, the 2 or 3 fights, 4 fights that you're really not quite sure about, and then you throw a 5 or a 10 spot on that, and it's still got really good odds and can be a nice little payout for you. And it's got a better shot of hitting because the fights that you're really not confident on or have no idea on, those have been removed. And then you trim it down one more time. Then you go just your most confident picks. Well, I was live last week on the trimmed down version of that parlay. Top to bottom, I had this thing absolutely called, and then we got saved by a couple of draws, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it all came down to the main event for me, and that's when it all went to hell. So it sucks. It was a bigger loss for me than normal, simply because I was already counting my money from this long shot parlay that I expected to hit on the main event. But the very first fight of the night, this hurt. We decided to take the under 2.5 in Muradov versus Smith, and we were banking on the fact that Muradov is an absolute monster and he was going to show his colors. We were banking on the fact that Trevor Smith is old and busted and just wasn't going to be able to hang with this young beast, monstrous kid. And we were right. We were perfectly right. The only problem was he waited about a minute to get it done. Muradov gets a round 3 TKO at the 4-minute mark, and we took the under 2.5. I thought that Smith was going to wilt in the second round. I thought that it was going to be over much sooner than that, and I know some of you actually ended up taking Muradov inside the distance. I know a couple of people on Twitter hit me up and said that they did, so congratulations to you all for cashing. I'm glad to hear that at least somebody cashed based upon my breakdown. That always feels good, but for the podcast and for my pockets, I took the under 2.5 and had to eat a fat loss on that one, so that did not feel good. I mean, I was consoled by the fact that I called the fight almost perfectly, so I was like, all right, we're still good. I wasn't that far off. We'll roll on to the next one, right? Virna Jandiroba, oh boy, she took care of Mallory Martin, and that's one that, wow. I mean, I didn't feel confidently enough on her to make that pick, but I did lean her, so it was good to see that, once again, I felt like I was kind of in a groove for this card, and my parlay was live through the first 2 fights of the night. Joe Selecki gets it done against Matt Weinman. I'm glad I steered clear of that one because, I mean, it was a good spot for Joe Selecki to really get a step up over not a big name. I don't want to say a big name, but, at least a veteran of the UFC. But Wyman's done, man. Unfortunately, that poor guy, he just can't hang at this point. Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell. I am super hyped on this kid. He is awesome, and the way he mauled Matt Sales. This is another one where I had a lean to Bryce Mitchell. I had Bryce Mitchell in my crazy-ass parlay, but did not have the balls to pull the trigger on Bryce Mitchell as a straight pick at a pick'em because I thought Matt Sales, I mean, I'm not down on Matt Sales after losing to Bryce. I think Bryce just got one over on him, but everybody I knew was on Sales, and I was like, not so fast. Thug Nasty's got some skills. So that was fun. I mean, there were lots of submissions on this card. It was really, really enjoyable. Kilburn was basically a lamb to slaughter, another one I'm glad I steered clear of. But the next fight was our next over, and another one that I just had absolutely wrong. So Tim Means brutalizes Thiago Alves and early. Now, again, I felt like I had to take a little bit of solace in the fact that I still kind of called this one. I mean, I said there were 2 ways that this fight plays out. Tim Means comes out and he's tentative from his knockout, which I thought he was going to be, but then the other side of that was Tim Means comes out not scared of anything and goes balls to the wall. I knew it was an option. I knew it could happen, but I really did not think that it was going to, and boy, he made Thiago his bitch. He bent him over quick, and he choked him out in the first round. So, I mean, I was on Tim Means as far as a pick. I said Tim Means was the right side. I thought he was going to be getting it done by decision, though. So, right fighter, wrong method. Lost another bet, unfortunately, since we had the over. And there were not a whole lot of overs to be had on this card. We move on to the main event, Rob Font versus Ricky Simon. That was another one where I picked the right side. Rob Font was a dominant winner against Ricky Simon, and if anybody cashed on that one, congratulations to you. Another one I was very close to pulling the trigger on and did not. I mean, this whole card really frustrated me, and I gotta wonder if maybe the break didn't play into this a little bit. I wasn't wanting to dive in with both feet, and I played a couple of totals that I kind of liked. Usually I do straight picks rather than the totals. I've been good on totals for the last back half of the year though, so I'm not too frustrated with myself for that. I feel like I was almost a little tentative here on this card and actually pulling the trigger on picks. So I'm going to try to be more decisive this week, especially on the stuff that I like. Rob Font gets it done. Missed opportunity there as well. Bantamweight, we had a draw, a crazy ass draw between Song Yadong, and it's so stupid here. They're still showing Geraldo de Freitas, even though it wasn't him. I'm blanking all of a sudden. Cody Stamann, thank you. Song Yadong versus Cody Stamann. That went to a draw, and that, you know what? I absolutely agreed with that. It was crazy to me that it would have been anything but a draw. Yadong did the damage he needed to do, and I mean, I kind of take that back a little bit. Watching the fight, I really thought that Stamann won, watching it live, and then kind of rewinding on it, settling on it. If you give Song Yadong a 10-8 round one, I don't blame you one bit for that, and I'm okay with the draw. But see, this is one where I was a little bit tentative. I wanted to take Song Yadong first. I wanted to take late, right before the fight started, and on the podcast I said I almost talked myself into a bet on Cody Stamann because he was a nice fat juicy dog at that line, and I was like, man, something's keeping me off this. Well, thank God. I mean, not thank God, we all got our money back, right? But my indecisiveness was reflected in the fight, the fact that it was evenly matched and went to a draw. So, you know, nothing missed there, but what a crazy fight. The fact that we got 2 draws in one night, spoiler alert, we haven't got there yet, but there are 2. Now, the big winner for the night, the thing that basically saved the evening for any of us, was my girl Aspen Ladd. She came out in round 3 after her coach gave her a pep talk from hell and laid Yana Kunitskaya out in 33 seconds. That felt good. And again, this is one where you all know I was on Aspen Ladd by KO. I told you all to bet Aspen Ladd by KO. I said it on Twitter before the fight started. Y'all know I hit that. But for the record, the podcast record, I only get the 1 unit laying minus 155 on Aspen Ladd. And that's where I get a little frustrated that I'm like, damn it, like I could have just been. I have been so sharp this year on women's MMA. We have crushed women's MMA, especially these inside the distance lines when we take these women by knockout or by submission. I feel it in my bones, and we have so many untracked bets where I've said, hit that line, and I've cashed on it, and you all have cashed on it, but the record isn't showing it because I haven't made it an official play. So that's something I'm going to work on for next year. I got to just stick with my gut a little bit more in these types of situations, but props to everybody who cashed on Aspen Ladd by KO, because that was plus 300 or better, and that really saved the night. If you were straight tailing me, that was something that definitely dug us out of the hole here. We got a wild fight with Stefan Struve versus Ben Rothwell, an absolute roller coaster. He got kicked in the nuts harder than I think anybody in the UFC's history has. Holy crap. And it happened twice. It almost looked like they were showing a replay. The second time that he got kicked in the cup, it was the exact same sequence, the exact same kick. He was fading away at the exact same angle, trying to circle out. It was ridiculous. I don't know what happened there, because I mean, really, with that second cup kick, you would think that the fight would be over. Props to Stefan Struve for getting up and being tough and continuing, but really it was a lose-lose situation, because at that point you are compromised. You're absolutely compromised, taking 2 giant shots like that to the cup, and Big Ben knows he's down a point now, so he has got to go balls out like an animal trying to get the finish, because that's the only way that he wins the fight. So you've got a guy ramping it up and a guy who is hurt going at it. Like, it weighs in one guy's favor massively. And if Struve takes the DQ, you know he's going to get booed. You know the entire crowd is going to erupt, calling him a pussy, making him feel terrible about getting out of there when he's, not hardly able to stand up after those kinds of shots. I mean, Big Ben is a 265-pound man who can knock out a horse, and he just kicked you in the nuts. Like, you take that shot and then try and get up and keep fighting. Like, damn, dude. So I feel really, really bad for Stefan Struve. Roundabout way, I was right again. I had Big Ben winning by KO. So that was fun for me, although not even close to the way I thought it was going to happen. The co-main event here, we had a strawweight fight between Moreno Rodriguez and Cynthia Calvillo, and this was the other draw on the card. Another crazy, wild fight, a lot like the Song Yadong fight, where Rodriguez looked like she was just in total control. Banked rounds 1 and 2 relatively easily, and then Calvillo decided to crank things up a notch in round 3, put Rodriguez on the ground and beat the shit out of her. I mean, I am shocked she didn't get the 3rd round TKO. I don't know how they didn't stop it, because Rodriguez took a beating. That's another fight that I think was very deserving of the draw that it got. And, you know, a lot of people complain about draws. As a fan, I'm really okay with draws, because when fights are so clear-cut like that one was, I don't think either girl really deserved to walk away the loser. I think that the draw is very representative of how the fight went and how evenly the match was, because Calvillo almost got the finish, and Rodriguez was far and away the more technical fighter for longer of the fight. It just feels fair to me. Now, let's get on to the shit sandwich that was the main event. So, if you tailed me, we ate another loss, going 1 and 4 for the night. Highly unfortunate. Our big bet was Alistair Overeem, and he did exactly what I wanted him to. I called this fight from start to finish, and up until the last 4 seconds, when Overeem decided to fight like an idiot, we had this thing. We had it in the bag. Let me tell you, if you tailed me, Alistair Overeem was far and away the right side. Everybody on Twitter who is telling you that they were on the right side, Jairzinho was never in doubt. Of course he was going to knock out Alistair Overeem. Shut them out. Ignore them. Don't listen to them. Yes, Jairzinho has crazy power. Yes, he could have knocked out Alistair Overeem. If we were sitting here right after the fights and you had said Jairzinho won by, second round KO, I'd have shrugged and been like, okay, that can happen. That absolutely could have happened. He was outclassed for 24 minutes and 56 seconds. He was outclassed from bell until almost bell. Overeem did everything perfectly. He managed the distance. He mixed in the takedowns. He schooled Jairzinho in MMA. And Jairzinho just had one swing with 4 seconds left on the clock. And realistically, even after landing that shot, if the referee doesn't wave it off, we still win. Because even with him landing that big bomb, he wins that round, and it was 4-1. We still win the decision with Alistair Overeem if the referee lets him get up and lets the clock run out. It was a horrific bad beat for those of us that were on Alistair Overeem. Now, that's part of the reason why we freaking love MMA, though, because this kind of crazy shit happens, and that's why it's the best sport on the freaking planet. It sucks to lose our bet, and it sucks that we lost cash on that, but damn, that was fun to watch. I mean, all props to Jairzinho digging deep at the last second there. He saw Overeem was getting tired, and I don't know why Overeem wasn't disengaging. We have seen Overeem straight turn heel and run in the cage before, and I thought that's what he was going to do. You've got the fight in the bag. It's locked up. Why are you getting in the face and poking the bear of a young powerhouse like Jairzinho with 10 seconds left, with 30 seconds left? Avoid. Get the decision win. And that's what I expected him to do. I don't know what he was thinking. Obviously, he wasn't thinking. He was out of gas. He was at the end of his rope. He was just trying to make it to the bell. And he made a mistake, and he paid for it. It's unfortunate. So that was our night. We went 1 and 4 for a nice big fat loss. Minus 3.95 units, which hurts because we have been fighting with that 30-unit mark once again. I thought we were going to get over that hump and lock it up for 2019, but we are scrapping for it one more time here at the end of the line. The official podcast record is now 139 wins to 128 losses for plus 25.11 units. That's right, we are up over 25 units on the year. It's still not a bad spot to be in, especially for the first year of the podcast doing this thing. We are still profitable through 2019, but you bet your sweet ass I want to end this thing on a winning note. So after that long ass recap of last week's awesome awesome event. Let's get in to UFC 245. Right before we jump into this thing, I do want to remind you all that if you would like to support the show, tips and donations are always appreciated, whether you had a big winning cashing night using the breakdowns I provided on the podcast, or if you just like what I'm doing and want to support the show, I would love it and appreciate it. You can send those tips to me at MaximusIn3D on PayPal. You can also send those to me at DieHardMMA on Venmo. I will put those in the description below or in the description of the podcast. Give me a thumbs up here if you're on YouTube, subscribe, give me a 5-star rating and review if you're on any of the podcast sites you're listening to. This would go a very long way to helping me out. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. UFC 245 kicks off with newcomer Punahele Soriano taking on Oskar Piechota. And Punahele is 6-0 undefeated, stepping in here against Oskar Piechota, who himself was undefeated not that long ago. Oskar is 11-2-1. He's riding a 2-fight losing streak after making a successful UFC debut. He won 2 fights in the UFC before he ran into Gerald Meerschaert and was choked out in the second round. Then he welcomed black belt hunter Rodolfo Vieira to the octagon back in August and got choked out again, which is kind of funny because this guy is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and his last 2 losses have been by submission. Kind of funny to me, actually. Punahele is a brand new fighter here to me. I actually didn't know a whole lot about him before researching for UFC 245. He was on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, and I must have just missed that episode because I did not see him. He fights out of Extreme Couture. He's got really heavy hands. He's got heavy ground and pound, and one thing I've noticed is he is explosive. The dude likes to get into brawls. He's got fast hands. He's got great body kicks, and he does train with Dan Ige, who we know very well and is in the process of training for a fight with Mirsad Bektic. So that's not a bad thing. That's a good training partner to have. Oskar Piechota on the other side of this thing, he's got heavy top control. He attacks with, front chokes. He passes guard really well. He's really slick on the mat, I'll be honest. However, he's a bit of a fish out of water on the feet. He's got very sloppy striking. He keeps his hands low. He's very hittable. And the thing that I've noticed most about him is that he gasses. He's got a lot of first-round finishes on his record, and especially in the UFC, he has gassed in round 2, leading to his submissions at the very end of the round both times. So when he lost to Gerald Meerschaert, it was at 455 in the round, and when he lost to Rodolfo, it was 426. So both of those came in the last minute of round 2, right after he showed massive gas tank problems. So this is going to be his comeback fight. His back will be against the wall. His job is going to be on the line here. If he drops 3 in a row, you know he's looking at the chopping block. The only problem is Punahele has got some serious hands, and this is going to be another striker versus grappler match. I don't want to touch this thing. The line right now sits roughly a pick'em. We've got Oskar being a slight favorite, minus 115, with the comeback on Punahele being plus 100. You can get him at plus 105. Plus 105 is about the highest I see right now, minus 110 in some places. So it's very close to a pick'em. If I had to pick this fight, I would take Punahele, but the problem with that is, again, we never underestimate people when it comes to the UFC. So just because Oskar has lost his last 2 fights in a row, he's lost them against grapplers with better gas tanks than he has. Punahele is a UFC newcomer who's stepping up in competition, which we always like to take advantage of and fade. However, he looks like he's got a great gas tank. So if he can implement his striking game and Oskar can't get the takedown, I expect Oskar to gas out and Punahele is going to TKO him. However, it would not shock me if Oskar finally got to shine with his ground game, because he is not fighting another black belt or a black belt hunter. So this might be his bounce back spot. Either way, I'm off it, but I would take Soriano if I had to make a pick. Our next fight is at women's flyweight, where Jessica Evil Eye takes on Viviane Araujo. And this is one that, I'll be honest with you guys, I am really looking at doing something that might just be stupid. Jessica Eye is coming off of the brutal head kick knockout loss in the very very early stages of round 2 against Valentina Shevchenko. One of the worst or best, depending on the perspective you're looking at it, with knockout in women's history. She is aggressive. She took 6 months off after the KO, which is, I'd say, appropriate. That's about how long you'd want to see her take off. I mean, maybe a little bit longer considering how bad the KO was. So right on that edge. 6 months is like the minimum mark. But with the women's, you don't really see a whole lot of knockouts. So I don't know if she's concerned about getting re-knocked out. Whereas like the bigger, heavier men, you see them get concussed again immediately if they come back on a short turnaround like that. So like I said, she's aggressive. She mixes in her leg kicks really well. She's got a really solid hard one too. When she fought Ketlen Chookagian, she actually outstruck her 81-65, which is very impressive in my opinion, since Chookagian has been the long time outwork my opponent type of fighter. Ai is an absolute decision machine. She has gone to decision 10 out of her 14 wins and 5 of her 7 losses. So she goes to the cards a lot, which actually, if you look back at her record, has lost to a lot of really close split decisions, win and losses by split decision. Actually, she's got a lot of them on her record. So she goes to decision a lot. She's got a good ground game. She's actually got a good, stand-up game as well. She's very, very well-rounded in my opinion. She can do a whole lot, and she likes to give different looks. When you see her from fight to fight, she doesn't always look like the same fighter. So I'm sure for her opponents, it's very difficult to game plan for her because she does a good job of changing things up every time she gets in there. She lands 3.51 significant strikes per minute, absorbing 3.36. So she is ever so slightly outstriking her opponents in general. She's got a 56% takedown defense rating, and she has a 66-inch reach. Now, Viviane has absolutely wild striking. She puts her head down. She puts her arms down. She does have heavy hands, but she does that lean forward thing that leaves her face and her chin open to knees, in my opinion, if you know how to take advantage of it. She does have good in and out movement. She circles well. She catches kicks, but in the pocket, she's very, very hittable. She's got athleticism. She has got speed. She's very accurate from range, and she is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. However, she has no get-up game from bottom. When she's on her back, she really is content to stay there. I don't know if she even knows how to get up from bottom. Even if she wanted to, I don't know if she knows how to. She really gasses out in round 3, and she struggles with the range when they're inside. Now, Jessica Ai is very, very good at striking inside. She's got good hard elbows, good knees, and I really think that that's going to cause a problem for Viviane. If Jessica can close the distance and stay in Viviane's face, I think she has a very, very good shot of winning this fight. Now, Araujo has a 4.96 significant strikes per minute, and she absorbs 4.42 significant strikes per minute. So she also is just barely outstriking her opponents. However, she's got a much higher work rate than Jessica Ai normally does. She has a 68-inch reach, so she's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, and she does average 2.91 takedowns per 15 minutes, so almost 1 per round, and she has a 100% takedown accuracy. Now, she's got a very small sample size, only 2 fights, but it still is good to know that if she goes for a takedown, so far, she hits them. This is a really close fight to me. I'm very, very tempted to take Jessica Ai here. I think that Viviane has a whole lot of hype surrounding her, but I do see where she is flawed, and I think that a lot of people are looking into Jessica Ai coming back damaged from the Shevchenko fight. If she comes back and she's just as confident as she always has been, she has got the skills to cause a problem for Vivi. So looking at the line over here, it looks like we have Araujo as a minus 145 favorite at the opener. 62% of the money has come in on her, and she's sitting about minus 175 right now. Jessica Ai is sitting at a plus 150 underdog. She opened up plus 125, and that line just keeps going up. I am very, very tempted to take a dog shot on Jessica Ai here in this fight. I think it's going to be a close fight. She's going to make it dirty. She's fought the upper echelon of the division, Jessica Rose Clark, Ketlen Chookagian, and she beat them both via decision. Even though the one with Chook was a split, she had a very good performance. I think that Jessica Ai is in the prime of her career right now, and short of that brutal loss to Valentina Shevchenko, she is looking very, very good before the knockout, obviously. At any rate, I think that this is a spot where Vivi is taking a decent step up in competition. Yes, she does seem to be more athletic, but the fact that she leaves herself open, she's okay with staying on bottom, and then she also tends to gas out where Jessica Eye will be coming hard for her in round 3. I'm tempted. With the money coming in on Vivi, I'm going to wait because we might get a better dog line here on Jessica Eye that will force me to pull the trigger, and I also want to see some interviews. If Jessica Eye doesn't seem like herself, then I definitely want no part of it. If she comes back damaged, if she comes back not nearly as confident, not really the killer that we're used to, then she's not going to be the kind of fighter I want to take a shot on. However, if she looks like she's chomping at the bit to get back in there, if she is, angry, if she wants to erase what happened to her against Shevchenko, then I might very well take this shot. Our next fight is in the flyweight division where Brandon Moreno takes on Kai Kara France. And this is one that I almost did I was very tempted to do the podcast out of order here because this, ladies and gentlemen, is my best bet. If you follow me on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod, you would know this already. We are bringing back the 2-unit bet. For those of you who are new to the show, I practice bankroll management like a fiend. Bankroll management is the most important thing when it comes to sports betting. Never let yourself get out of control. Never let yourself put too much on any one bet, no matter how confident you are, because at some point, you will be wrong and you will go broke. So you want to do a unit system. We always bet 1 unit. 1%, between 1% and 3% of the bankroll is 1 unit. Whatever that 1 unit is for you, you stick to it. And when you put 1 unit on each fight, you tend to protect yourself from the ups and downs of, oh, I'm so sold on this fight, I'm going to put 5 units on this guy, but then not so much on this guy and put 1 unit on this guy. Well, the 1 unit wins, the 5 unit losses, you just dug yourself a massive hole. That was happening to me, so I switched to this 1 unit process. Now, every once in a while, a fight comes along that I will take my balls out of my purse and I will put 2 units down on it because I like it just that much. Here we have one tonight. It's been a while, so everybody get ready. Brandon Moreno is one of my favorite fighters on the roster. I'm a huge fan of this guy, and I'm a huge fan of the way that he fights. He came off The Ultimate Fighter, and he basically has been disrespected his entire career, but he is a massively live dog. He's very young. He's only 26 years old, and he's improving constantly. He is 15-5, and he is a submission wizard. Dude's got 10 of his 15 wins by submission. He's got wild aggressive ground game. He scrambles really well. He shines when opponents will meet him on the mat. When you go to the ground with this guy and you try to scramble with him, you lose. He will out-scramble you every single time. The problem is he has very, very questionable fight IQ, and that's something that immediately put me off of him this time. I bet on him against Askar Askarov as a giant underdog, and I'm still a little upset that we lost that one because I think he actually won that fight. Massive value, absolutely massive value on Moreno in that fight because everyone was sold that Askarov would whoop him on the mat, and Brandon Moreno proved more than enough to be up to the challenge. He does throw spinning kicks. He goes with low kicks very, very often. He is very durable, but he can be physically overpowered. His loss to Alexander Pantoja back in 2018, I think that was really the fight that showed the game plan that is most successful against Brandon Moreno, and it's something that I expect to see again here this weekend. He's 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. He averages 2.58 significant strikes per minute, and he absorbs 2.83. So yes, he is in general being outstruck by his opponents. He does land 2.39 takedowns per 15 minutes. However, he has a 43% accuracy. He doesn't have the wrestling game to get these fights where he wants them to be. He has to rely on scrambles, knockdowns, trips. Those are the ways that he gets the fights to the mat. And that's not something I see working on our boy Kai Kara France. Now, Kai Kara France is a strong, physically strong fighter. He's got excellent takedown defense, and he uses the cage very, very intelligently, both offensively and defensively. He's got very fast hands and crisp boxing. He trains out of the fabled City Kickboxing Gym, which is on an absolute roll right now. And as far as gyms in the world goes, it's right behind Fight Ready for being the best gym, the best up-and-coming gym, in my opinion. They are pumping out stars. It's the home of Israel Adesanya, and he's the main training partner for Volkanovski, who is fighting Max Holloway later on in this card, which, if you're training with Volkanovski day in and day out, you're going to get better, and that guy is going to teach you things. France has been improving every single fight that we have seen him. He is a decision machine, but he controls the pace of the fight, and he forces opponents to stand with him, where he basically just outclasses them on the feet. He's very, very accurate from range. He's got heavy leg kicks, and he always ends combos with kicks, which just adds up, and it's something, technically speaking, that you love to see. He's 5'4" with a 69-inch reach, so he will be shorter and have a 1-inch reach disadvantage, but he averages 5.22 significant strikes per minute, absorbing only 3.18. He is landing over 2 significant strikes per minute on his opponents, and yes, that is a lot. I know it's a small sample size, but that is still a massive gap. He has an incredible 88% takedown defense rating. I think that Brandon Moreno has a very, very bad matchup here. Now, MMA is all about matchups. MMA math doesn't work. This guy beat that guy, so that guy beat that guy. No. A plus B does not equal C. But there are certain aspects of that are true. Kai France has the takedown and wrestling ability to make Brandon Moreno stand with him. Brandon Moreno won't be able to take Kai Kara down. And because of that, he's going to have to stand with him. Brandon Moreno's striking may be improving, but it's not going to be on the level of Kai France. Kai Kara has heavy hands, fast, crisp hands. He's going to go down the middle while Brandon Moreno tries to throw looping punches and kicks that take time to wind up. I think that Kai Kara is going to beat him to the punch, quite literally speaking, and box Moreno up over the course of 15 minutes. I know Brandon Moreno's dangerous. Trust me, I am a Brandon Moreno truther. I am a huge fan of this guy. I want to see him succeed and win. However, I don't think this is the fight for him. I tweeted out that I was going official on Kai France at minus 145. After doing a little bit more digging and a little more tape study, I liked it even more. I pulled the trigger at minus 150. So if you tailed me, congratulations. We already beat a line move. He is minus 165 right now. 57% of the money has come on Kai France, and I expect that line to get wider. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he closed about a minus 190 or almost a minus 200 favorite over Brandon Moreno. There will be some buyback at that point because Moreno is such a live dog. The dude's got heart. He never quits. This is a scary, scary bet for me because if Brandon Moreno does manage to get Kai Kara's back, we might be in trouble. And we can't count out the possibility that Brandon Moreno has improved over his time off. I do think this is a great spot for Kai Kara, though. Moreno fought back in September. That's not a whole lot of time to improve, and from what I saw his striking the last time out, he's not on Kai Kara's level. This is my 2-unit play. This is my favorite play on the card, and I plan on cashing it. Kai France, minus 145, minus 155. If you want him now, hit him at minus 165 because it's gonna get worse. The next fight of the night is at featherweight, where Chase Hooper, the teenage dream, is taking on Daniel Kid Dynamite Teymur. Talk about a dumpster fire. So this is not a fight that I'm a fan of. From what I have heard, sharp action from, respectable, sharp bettors for sports books has actually come in on Chase Hooper, and this is really, really interesting and weird to me. So Chase Hooper comes to us from Dana White's Contender Series. They gave him one of those weird provisional contracts. They wanted him to get some more experience and get a little bit better before they actually brought him into the UFC, but they did give him a contract. So after he wins on Dana White's Contender Series, which that was an ugly fight. That was a really ugly fight. He's got a slick ground game. This kid is serious on the mat, and he's huge. He's got a massive height and reach advantage over everybody he fights, but he is so lanky and gangly, he has no striking game whatsoever. He's dangerous if you get on the mat with him, though. He's got some sick, wicked chokes, and his ground and pound, it's very John Jones-esque because he's so damn long. He gets some serious leverage and power on the elbows and things like that he rains on you. So his ground and pound is good. His submission game is slick, but on the feet, he is ugly, absolutely ugly. So after he gets his provisional contract, he goes out and fights in Cage Fury Fighting Championships, and he fights to a split. Then he gets a TKO in another small organization, and then he gets a submission. After those two wins, the UFC is finally bringing him back, and they are trying to hand him on a platter Daniel freaking Teymur. Remember the guy I told you that they were using to make Sun Bing Jo look good back in June? Yeah, that guy. The guy who pulled the upset out of his ass to catch us when we bet against him. He was brought in to lose to Sung Bing Jo and somehow dug deep and managed to get it done. Once again, that's why we love this damn sport. Crazy stuff happens. So Daniel Teymur is the lesser of the Teymur brothers. He's a Muay Thai stylist, and he's short as hell. He's 5'5" versus Chase Hooper's 6'1". He's going to be at a massive height and reach disadvantage. However, on the feet, he is going to be far and away the better fighter. He's a Muay Thai specialist. Like I said, he uses lots of heavy leg kicks, and he has these great step-in hooks. That's one thing I do like about his game. He uses trip takedowns a lot. He does get in on deep double legs, but he's got very suspect submission defense. It does seem like it's something that he's working on, but he got subbed out by Julio Arce and Chris Fishgold back-to-back. He's, in the UFC, he's already got 3 losses, and 2 of those came by choke. I think the UFC is trying to set him up for a submission loss here. They go, oh, I know a guy who likes to get choked out. Hey, you know that kid? Yeah, the one that can't strike and can only choke people out? Let's match them up. That's a great idea. So Chase Hooper, 20 years old, is coming in here against maybe the best fighter on the roster for him to go against. The problem is, I still can't bet him. I know the UFC wants Chase Hooper to win. I know they're using Teymur as a stepping stone, and I still can't pull the trigger on Chase Hooper because he's so bad. He's got tall man defense. He leaves his chin up. He is so extraordinarily hittable. If this thing hits the mat, he will choke out Daniel Teymur. However, if Teymur is able to implement his Muay Thai game, if he keeps a strong base and doesn't engage in the grappling, he may damn well knock Chase Hooper out. Right now, they're sitting right around a pick'em. I mean, there's, like I said, sharp money did come in on Hooper. He is the ever so slight favorite here. Minus 115 it looks like to plus 100 on Teymur, but like everybody can see, there's a distinct line for each of these fighters. Each of them has a very clear path to victory. So because of that, it's a coin flip. It really is. One thing I'll be interested to see is what the Chase Hooper by submission line looks like. This is a spot where we might be able to catch the bookies with their pants down. Inside the distance, Hooper is plus 155. They might give us plus 200 or something crazy like that on the submission prop, which if they do, I will be taking because that's exactly what the UFC is trying to set up here. You can get Teymur inside the distance at plus 275. I mean, he's not really a knockout guy, but this is a massive step up in competition for Chase Hooper, so I wouldn't blame you for taking the shot on Teymur, but I can't trust him with my money. I just can't. The next fight of the night is one of the ones that I am most excited about. I mean, even with the gigantic triple title fight type of night, this fight is a banger, and you know somebody is going to sleep. We have got Matt the Immortal Brown coming out of retirement to take on Ben Saunders, Killer B himself. What a dumpster fire. Like I said, somebody is getting knocked out cold in this one. So Matt Brown retired after taking out Diego freaking Sanchez with the elbow of the year back in 2017. Now, he broke a 3-fight losing streak when he did that, and he rode off into the sunset, and I really wish he had stayed there. This is one of those fights that I don't know if he's going, hey, I feel good, I took some time off, that wear and tear off my body, I got the itch, like, man, he might miss up his sunset here. Coming back in this kind of a spot, I do not like it. One of the biggest things that we've seen with Matt Brown is his body is broken. He got TKO'd by Jake freaking Ellenberger in 2016. Yes, the Jake Ellenberger that everybody wrecked, he got knocked out by in the first round. Donald Cerrone took him out in round 3. And even before he finished Diego Sanchez, he ate a kick to the body and it almost folded him. That's right, Diego Sanchez. 1 full year after he lost to Donald Cerrone. So it's not like he hadn't taken time off or something like that. Diego Sanchez hit him with a kick, and he immediately doubled over and grabbed onto his sides. He wanted nothing to do with that fight. I don't know why he's coming back. He's completely broken, and even if the last couple years off have helped him heal some, I think when he gets into a real fight with a real fighter who's actually trying to hurt him, I think his eyes are going to get opened up. He's 38 years old. He's almost 40. Y'all know my rule. Unless we got a damn good reason, we don't bet on fighters over 40. He's not quite there yet, but he's close. And he's had a long and damaging career. Now, the same thing could be said for Ben Killaby Saunders. He's only 36, so he's got 2 years on him. He is 6'3", and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. I'm sorry, he's going to have a 3-inch height advantage. He has a 75... I'm sorry, Matt Brown has a 75-inch reach, and Ben Saunders has a 77-inch reach. So Saunders will have a 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. He's 22-12. Between these guys, they have got 24 knockouts. Both of them are fabulous knockout artists, or at least they were earlier in their careers. Ben Saunders himself is coming off a 3-fight losing streak. He got submitted by Sergio Moraes back in 2018. He got KO'd by Lyman Good, which Good's a beast, so I mean, no shame really there. And then he got knocked out by Takashi Sato in a fight that we almost cashed a bet on. We actually had a stab on Ben Saunders because we thought he was going to use the ground game, and he actually hurt Takashi. If y'all remember that fight, he hurt Takashi bad before Takashi turned it on him and then ended up getting the KO himself. The problem with Ben is he doesn't have a chin. Now, if you recall, we have very, very few rules in the Die Hard MMA podcast. One of them is we don't bet on fighters over 40 unless we've got a damn good reason to do so. And the other one is that we don't bet on fighters who have a bad fight IQ. The third one is we don't bet on fighters who have a bad chin. Again, unless we have a very, very good reason. You know what we've got here? We've got a good reason. The line on this fight, in my opinion, is ridiculous. Matt Brown, coming out of retirement, is a minus 365 favorite. He has been gone for 2 years, and like I said, is broken, and he's a minus 365 favorite. Now, all the money that I can see has come in on Ben Saunders, who opened up at plus 305 and has been bet down to plus 265. You can still get him at certain spots out there, plus 285, plus 290, and that sounds good to me. I did tweet this one out. This is another bet that we are going to take. I locked up Ben Saunders at plus 285, and the reason for it is that this line is way, way too wide. Both of these men have vicious, vicious power. One of them has been active recently and been beaten by guys who are current and active fighters. The other guy almost got knocked out by Diego freaking Sanchez and did get knocked out by Jake Ellenberger and has been gone for 2 years. I actually think Ben Saunders is going to have a sharpness edge here. I don't know. I mean, Matt Brown really might have some ring rust in this kind of a spot. He's almost 40 and he's been gone for so long. You can't expect him to step right back into the thick of things and start quick. The other thing is, he's not exactly a speed demon. Ben Saunders has got some speed on his punches, on his kicks. He's got heavy leg kicks, and he's incredibly powerful in the clinch. That's the thing that I think is the key. If Ben Saunders clinches on Matt Brown, he will pound his body with the knees from hell, and I believe he will fold Matt Brown. If he hits Matt Brown with a couple of knees or even a big body kick, which is kind of his go-to move, Matt Brown will fold, and he'll either get waved off for a KO or this thing will hit the mat. And Ben Saunders is actually pretty freaking wicked when it hits the ground. If he's on top of Matt Brown on the ground, this thing is going to be over fast. I see a lot of paths to victory for Ben Saunders. Now, don't get it twisted. We're taking a plus 285 favorite here. He's the underdog for a reason. Matt Brown's got some heavy hands and some serious power. If he comes out here and he clips Ben Saunders in the first round, we have got to expect that there is a very real possibility that that will happen. I can guarantee you this is not going to go like Overeem did, though. This will not end up going to round 3 with both these guys staring at each other, and we're praying that Ben Saunders can just stay away from Matt Brown for the final 10 seconds. One of these guys is going to sleep. Let's roll with Ben Killaby Saunders. We're riding one last time at plus 285. Our next fight is at middleweight, where we have Ian the Hurricane Heinisch, one of my favorite rising fighters, taking on Amari Wolverine Akhmedov. Now, Armari Akhmedov is a fighter that I have been on record stating that I'm not really a big fan of his. He was a decent-sized 170-pounder. He moved up to 185, and he has been undersized ever since. I've tried to fade him, and it hasn't gone very well. He went to a split with Marvin Vettori. He beat Tim Bosch, which was unfortunate. Bosch's shot, I never should have taken that bet. And then he beat Zach Cummings via decision. So he is just getting it done in spots that it's not going to last. Let's be real. He and Hurricane Heinisch is 13-2. The dude's Hurricane nickname is perfect for him. He's a grinder. He is aggressive. He pins you up against the fence. He's got excellent takedown submission defense. He's got awesome offense in the takedown area himself. And the only reason I feel like he lost his last fight was because of the evolution of Derek Brunson. We successfully bet Ian against Cesar Ferreira, Antonio Carlos Jr., and then we got busted by Derek Brunson in his last fight. Derek went back to his wrestling game and was just too big and explosive and actually showed some new wrinkles. I'm proud of Derek Brunson for turning over a new leaf in his career. But I think that this is a get-right fight for Ian Heinisch, in my opinion. Armari Akhmedov is kind of a mirror image of Ian, except Ian is basically better everywhere, in my opinion. I mean, maybe Armari Akhmedov has an advantage in the pure grappling in the wrestling aspect, but when it's MMA grappling, I think Ian has the advantage. I think that Ian will force Armari to stand with him. If they get into clinch situations against the cage, Ian is going to be the physically stronger guy. He'll be able to reverse situations and pin Armari up against the cage as well, and then he'll be able to get off on him. I don't see this fight going well for Armari Akhmedov. Now, Ian opened up a -140 favorite, and it doesn't look like the market quite knows what they want to do here. Most of the money has come in on Armari Akhmedov. It looks like 56% of the money has come in on Akhmedov. However, he went from +120 to +130 in most places. The only book that I'm seeing where he's not would be Heritage. It looks like at Heritage he's down to +108. So a big bet came in on Armari Akhmedov on Bookmaker, it looks like, to drive that line down. You can get Ian Heinisch at -138 over there, and I think I like that. I'm going to go ahead and lay the wood with my boy Ian Heinisch. I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity for him to get right. I don't think that this is a fight where I just don't see how Armari Akhmedov is able to win. I do think that these guys are mirror images of each other. I think they're going to implement the same style of game, and I think that Ian Heinisch has by far the higher ceiling. I mean, he's only 1 year younger than Armari, so technically they are both in the primes of their careers. They both come out of good gyms. Ian is training out of Factory X, whereas Armari is training out of American Top Team, so both places are excellent spots to train. I just think coming off of a loss, Ian is going to be hungry. He was knocking on the doorstep of the top 5, the top 10, and he got derailed by a guy in Derek Brunson that we all really wrote off, and me personally at least, I underestimated him. You got to wonder if Ian maybe did the same thing. But with that kind of a loss, he's going to come back angry and ready to go, and Armari Akhmedov is not the kind of guy that's going to pose a problem. He's kind of a less athletic, a slower, more marauding version of Derek Brunson. Ian should be able to outclass this guy on the feet. And in my opinion, Ian has fought the better competition. And like I said, he's a natural 185-pounder, whereas Armari is a natural 170-pounder who's kind of moved up and will be a little bit undersized. I am going to snag that -138 line because I think that is about right, and I think that's as low as it's going to go. I think money's going to trickle in here on Ian Heinisch, and it looks like, I mean, this is a reverse line movement type of spot. When less money comes in on one side, and that's the wider side of the line, you know that that's where the sharp respected money is coming from. So I'm going to go ahead and take that as a positive in my direction, and we're going to bet on Ian Heinisch to get back on the horse at -138. The next fight is a women's bantamweight fight between Ketlen Vieira, who is undefeated, taking on Irene Aldana. Ketlen opened up as a -185 favorite, but it looks like money has come in on Irene, driving her from a +160 underdog down to about a +140 underdog. And this is a fight that I just do not have a good read on. Ketlen is an undefeated 10-0, and she's been relatively impressive. I mean, she's got 4 UFC fights under her belt, and her most recent win was that close split decision over Kat Zingano. However, that was back in March of 2018, so we haven't seen her for some time. She's 28 years old, so you would expect that this is the type of fighter who's going to be improving, getting rolling here on her UFC career. Irene Aldana on the flip side of this thing is 11-5. She has been knocked out twice in her career, keep in mind. Her last fight was a win over Vanessa Mello, and before that she dropped a split to my girl Rocky Pennington. Before that, however, she was on a nice little run. After losing to Caitlin Chukagian, she put a 3-fight win streak together over Talita Bernardo, Lucy Pudilova, and then she submitted Betch Correia. And that was all 2018-2019. She's been very active in 2019. This will be her 4th fight of the year. Both of these women are dangerous, and I remember Irene Aldana giving me a lot of pause the last time I broke down one of her fights. I'm just very, very uncomfortable with her. I mean, she's got that crazy women's record where it's like, it's not good, but as we've talked about a whole lot of times, those of you who have been with me for a while, women's records are misleading because there's a much smaller talent pool, so a lot of them have way more losses than the men do. You know, the men you'll see 10-2 or 14-1, you know, stuff like the women, you don't really see that. You'll get women who have like a, you know, like this, an 11-5 record because they run into each other a lot more often because it's just not that deep of a division. I am very, very uncomfortable with this fight. This is one that I'm going to be watching closely and trying to bank some information on for the future because I don't really want to step in front of Ketlen Vieira. She is undefeated, and she beat a couple of veterans like Ashley Evans-Smith, Sarah McMahon, and then Kat Zingano. She's very, very dangerous. She's got a slick offensive submission game. However, she's also got some power for a woman. She's got 2 KOs on her record. Those are from earlier in her career, but still, it's there. Irene Aldana on the flip side of this is a tough, hard-nosed Mexican fighter. She is going to be... I mean, she seems like she's going to be taller and lankier, but surprisingly, these women are actually the same height. So it's just one more reason why this thing is a wash to me. She also has an offensive submission game, and she also has some KOs on her record. She's got some hands. So I'm just going to sit back and watch this one. If you have a bet on this one, good freaking luck. I would be tempted to take Irene Aldana at this price, but I kind of lean Vieira. I also don't want to lay -175 or -165 on Vieira when I feel like Aldana's that live. So straight pass for me. Good luck, everybody. Holy cow, diehards. This card is so deep. I love how stacked this card is top to bottom. It is going to be a great night of mixed martial arts action. We have got a welterweight fight between Hands of Steel, Geoff Nelson versus Mike Platinum Perry, and this is going to be an absolute banger. Geoff Neal. I'm not sure if you say it Jeff or Geoff. I'm not sure. Neal. Neal's a problem. This dude is a legit problem. He comes out of Fortis MMA, which is another up-and-coming, gym that we have talked about a lot in the past. His most recent win over Nico Price. We were against him on that one. Really, really, really wide line. Nico Price damn near knocked him out in the second round. And then Neal cranked it up a notch and returned the favor and knocked Nico out to end that fight. That was a banger. And I still stand by the fact that we had value on Nico. He almost got it done. And he's coming back. He's taking some time off, so I'm not worried about rattled brain syndrome or anything like that here in this fight. Mike Platinum Perry, we know, has some heavy hands himself, and he seems to have been taking a more technical training approach. You can really see him, if you look on his social media and stuff like that, you can see he's really working on rounding out every aspect of his MMA game. He's a fan favorite. He's got 13 wins, 11 of those by knockout, 5 losses, 4 of those by decision, and then 1 of them that crazy armbar by Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Neal has 12 wins, 7 of them KOs, only 2 losses, 1 KO, and 1 decision. The 1 KO loss came to Kevin Holland back in 2017 before either of them were in the UFC. Let's take a look at these numbers. Platinum Mike Perry averages 4.29 significant strikes per minute. He absorbs 4.43, so yes, he is being outstruck by his opponents ever so slightly. He's 5'10", and he's got a 71-inch reach. Neal has a 74 5-inch reach and is 5'11", so he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. The thing about Neal is he has a high output, and he's very, very good at avoiding getting hit. He has a 5.86 significant strikes per minute, and he only absorbs 3.58, so he's another one of these crazy fighters that lands more than 2 significant strikes per minute over his opponents. He is far and away the more technical and better fighter here. Now, I don't want to count out Mike Perry because, again, he has been working very diligently on his game, but he is one of these fan favorite types of fighters that I just feel like has a ceiling. I don't know that he is going to be able to advance beyond a certain point in his MMA game, and that's just no fault of his own. He's a little rough around the edges, you know what I mean? But the one thing that you can count on with Mike Perry is he is durable AF. In his fight against Vicente Luque back in August, he has his nose rearranged all the way off to the side of his face, and it didn't stop him. You know, most people would have taken a loss there when their nose got rearranged that way, and Platinum blew his nose out, got the blood out of the way, and kept pounding, trying to take the win off of Vicente Luque, which, you know, it was a split decision loss, which I feel like he could have won, actually. That was the last time we bet on Mike Platinum Perry. I expect Neal to win this fight. Let's just get that out of the way. Right now, Neal's sitting at about a minus 245 favorite. 69% of the money has come in on Mike Perry as a 215 underdog. He's been driven down to right around minus 200. I mean, I do feel like I can understand you saying that he's got a puncher's chance at about plus 200, that kind of thing, but I don't think that he'll be able to outclass Neal, and I also don't think that he's got the type of speed and explosion that it takes to land a big shot and put Neal out. Now, Neal has most of his wins by knockout, even since he's gotten into the UFC. He submitted Brian Camozzi in his UFC debut. He got into the UFC off of a TKO win in the first round on Dana White's Contender Series. He KO'd Frank Camacho, and then, like we talked about, he KO'd Nico Price. Now, Mike Platinum Perry has a bit of a different story. He got in off of a couple of really big KO wins as well, but he went to decision with Santiago Ponzinibbio, who's one of the hardest hitters in the division. He went to decision with Max Griffin, who's another explosive, fast-moving hard hitter. He went to decision and won against Paul Felder. He did get submitted by Donald Cerrone, but was banging it out before then. He went to decision with Alex Cowboy Oliveira. He went to decision with Vicente Luque. This dude has a chin. He's got a phenomenal chin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trust my gut. I am once again going to take my balls out of my purse and put them on the table. We're going to take Neal wins by 3-round decision at plus 215. I think there is massive value on this line. If you want to play it safe and you want to parlay Neal, I don't know if that's playing it safe because parlays are, parlays, they get busted like all the time. But if you want to do that, take the money line, bring the price down to where it's playable with another favorite you like on the card. I don't think that that's a bad approach. The other thing I'm going to look for is the total. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, I'm really frustrated. The totals aren't out for this card. There are a couple totals that I have my eye on and would be very interested in playing. I'm not avoiding them because I had bad luck with them last week. They're just not out yet. So keep an eye on my Twitter. I may add totals on to my picks. This is probably one of them. The line is showing Neal wins inside the distance at minus 105. I think the knockout over Nico Price is really something sticking in the bookmakers' minds. I think they're expecting Neal to come out here and put Mike Platinum Perry away. So if we get a 1.5, I'm going over. I think that Perry will be able to fight technically with Neal. When he realizes that he's at a disadvantage, he seems like he kind of shuts down a little bit. I remember the decision loss to Alan Jouban and also the decision loss to Santiago Ponzinibbio. He realizes when he's being outclassed, and he does kind of go into a preventative mode. He doesn't go balls to the wall. He doesn't go crazy looking for that knockout like somebody like Nico Price does. He just kind of turns it into a bit of a sparring match. He's willing to concede loss knowing that he's getting experience. And that's the kind of guy who will drag this thing to a decision, where Neal, he just wants to also focus on flowing. He's not necessarily going to look for the kill. He will take it if it presents itself, but he's not going to push it. He'll take the win. He's a very intelligent fighter as well. So I think that there is a shot that we catch the bookies with their pants down here. If Perry's head can just hold it together, we can cash a nice fat bet on Neal by 3-round decision at plus 215. Wow, and that gets us to the main card. But you know what? We still have 5 freaking fights to break down. Holy crap, this card goes forever. Let's get right on into it. We have Petr Yan taking on Urijah freaking Faber at bantamweight for this next fight. And I don't know what to tell you all about this one. Urijah Faber is another one of these recently retired fighters, and he storms back onto the scene with a knockout against Ricky Simón in his last fight. He announces his return to the MMA world in a thunderous way that cannot be denied. And he is trying to parlay that into a title shot. He wants to take the short line to the title with his kind of name, his kind of fan base, and a big win over a guy like Petr Yan, who is a complete monster. He could do it. If he wins this fight, he's absolutely getting the next title shot. The problem is, I don't see any world where he gets by Petr Yan. Petr Yan is one of these guys that you all know, you've heard me rave about him. We just barely missed an inside the distance bet against Jimmy Rivera. He almost finished him at the ends of both rounds 1 and 2, and somehow Jimmy survived that decision. He just puts it on people. He is constant pressure. He reminds me a lot of kind of a Justin Gaethje type of style. Now, he fights out of Tiger Muay Thai. He's only 26 years old. He's from Russia. This kid is mean. He legitimately wants to hurt his opponents, and I think he enjoys seeing it when he does have them hurt. Now, he will just continue to beat on people until the 15 minutes are up and he takes a decision win, and he doesn't push the finish. That's something that I like to see from the aspect of he's incredibly smart. I wish he would go for the finish maybe a little bit more because, like last time, we could have cashed that bet. But, as far as fighting goes, he's very intelligent about it. He's never going to put himself in a spot where he's overreaching for that finish. He just lets it come. So he's got 13 wins and only 1 loss. 5 of his wins have come by KO, 7 of them by decision. His last 2 fights in a row against Dodson and Rivera have both come by decision. However, before that, he TKO'd the crap out of Douglas Silva de Andrade. Now, Urijah Faber, he was fighting a 2-fight losing streak against Dominic Cruz and Jimmy Rivera when he got his retirement win against Brad Pickett in 2016. He's another one that rode off into the sunset, and one of the few, him and GSP, that came back and actually got that win after that long layoff retirement. He knocks out Ricky Simón in round 1. Now, Ricky Simón was a hand-picked opponent. Urijah Faber has very limited weapons. He's got 1 big punch, and then he's got a grappling game, and he's got a gas tank. His grappling game is a little outdated, in my opinion, these days. He isn't really able to implement it the way that he used to when he was younger. He doesn't really get a lot of finishes. In fact, he almost never gets finishes. He didn't knock out anybody since Renan Barão all the way back in 2014 before Ricky Simón. He does submit lower-level competition, but you can damn well believe that's not going to happen with Petr Yan. He's also 40 years old. He's got an incredible 35-10 record. The guy's been around forever, but he's going to give up some size here to Petr. I just think Peter's got the defensive wrestling ability to keep this thing standing. Petr is not going to run into the punch that Ricky Simón did. I think Petr Yan pieces Urijah up over the course of 15 minutes. I don't know if he will try to make a statement or not here and try to get him out of there, or if he's going to be just fine with going the distance and taking the cash. Now, you can get Yan inside the distance at -120, so the bookmakers seem to think that Urijah Faber will wilt. However, this is another spot where I think we might have a shot to bet on the durability of Urijah Faber. He has been knocked out 3 times in his career. However, that was from Mike Brown all the way back in 2008, and before that it was Tyson Griffin in 2005. He has not been knocked out in his entire UFC career, and he's been in the UFC since 2011. I honestly don't think that I can pass this spot up. Petr Yan is a -475 favorite. Holy crap, he's a -500 favorite in most places. You can get him -475 at 5 dimes. He's -500 everywhere else. If there was a lock on this card, it is Petr Yan. If you have the kind of money that you can lay on a guy like this at -500, good for you. I'm not doing it. You know that's not my game. Now, I told everybody the same thing in Urijah Faber's last fight good luck if you want to bet on him. I understand why you would. You're a fan. He's a big name. He's fun. It's always fun to take those shots on plus 300, 380, 350 underdogs. Go for it. If you want to sprinkle Urijah Faber, I get it. More so this time than last time, I do not see how he gets the win here. I am going to take the shot on Yan wins by 3-round decision. Once again, I am going to bank on the fact that Urijah has enough veteran savvy to survive. He's able to take the shots that Petr Yan brings to him. He's able to implement the wrestling enough to keep himself alive. And because Yan doesn't always run through his opponents and he likes to play with his food, I think he gets this thing done by decision. And plus 165, I think, is more than enough of a fair price, especially after the way his last fight went, where he could have absolutely finished Jimmy Rivera, but decided not to. I think this is another pretty good little angle. And I'm pretty sure one of these cash. I'm pretty sure either Yan by decision or Neal by decision will cash. If we play them both, we should lock up at least one of them. This is kind of a two-parter play that if one of them comes through, we're in the green for those two plays. Petr Yan, 3-round decision, plus 165. Our next fight is another fight. There are like 5 of these on the card tonight that could be the main event of a fight night. Marlon Moraes is coming back and taking on José freaking Aldo, the king of Rio versus the Magic Man. José Aldo, before Max Holloway took over, was the greatest champion 145 has ever seen. And even though we talk about how hard he's fallen from grace, somehow he's still only 28-5. He has lost a lot recently, but he still only has 5 losses overall, and he's only 33 years old. I don't know how he's not older because of how freaking long this guy has been around. So let me just run through his last couple of fights. So in 2015, we all know he gets clipped and taken out by Conor McGregor for the belt in 13 seconds. He bounces back with a decision win over Frankie freaking Edgar, which proves to everybody that he's still here, he's still alive, and he's still championship caliber. Then he gets TKO'd back-to-back against Max Holloway in their 2 title fights in the 3rd round. Again, we're all counting him out. He rebounds against Jeremy Stephens with a vicious body shot knockout, and then he derails Renato Cornero Moicano in the 2nd round with an absolute flurry of heavy shots. He's looking like he's headed back to his belt and maybe a 3rd run-in with Max Holloway somehow, and he gets taken out by Alex Volkanovski, which that fight was fun because it let me tape study for both fighters at the same time, saved me a little bit of time and effort. And he just gets completely outclassed against Volkanovski. Volkanovski outlanded him by like almost 100 strikes. I mean, it was a insane one-sided beatdown. However, at no point in that fight did it actually look like Aldo was wilting. It didn't look like he was going to get knocked out. So I've got a bit of a theory here. At 145, McGregor had ungodly power, and Aldo was emotional and underestimated Conor, and that's how and why he got knocked out in 13 seconds. Max Holloway is the gas tank man. Now, I don't want to give too much away because we're going to break down his fight here pretty quick, but the way he breaks people is he ramps it up as they're getting tired. And Aldo doesn't really do well with 5-round fights. I know he had the 5-round fights against Lamas and Mendez, but let's be real, he was in control of those fights from the beginning. He can go 5 rounds, but when he does start to tire, the way Max's style puts it on you, body shots, constant pressure, it wears on you, and he was able to TKO him in those 2 fights because he was just able to control the range and poke at him constantly until it wore Aldo down. People who are more his size or don't have that type of volume styles, he does very, very well against, which is why he wrecked Jeremy Stephens and why he beat Moicano. Volkanovski reminds me a lot of Max Holloway, and actually he reminds me even more of Dustin Poirier. Again, don't want to tip my hat too much there because I'm breaking down that fight shortly. But I think that's why Aldo had such a problem. I don't know that Aldo's done. I don't know that Aldo is broken. I don't know that we should toss him to the side because it seems like he's actually got a decent chunk of gas left in the tank. And like I said, he is only 33 years old. Now, he is dropping down a weight class. He will be fighting at 135 for the first time in his life. This is something I find concerning. He's a very big 145er, and they have always talked about how he will grow into his frame and have to move up to 155 at some point. A couple years ago, there were even rumblings of him moving up to 155 to rematch McGregor for the title and avenge that loss. That never happened, but it's concerning that he's now going down. Something I don't like is when aging fighters try to hop a weight class to rejuvenate their career. It just doesn't tend to go well. The book is written on your style, and if you're not evolving your style of fighting and you're just going to a different weight class, they'll be able to game plan for you appropriately, and you're trying to figure out your body in a way where you're just not familiar with what you can do anymore. Think of TJ Dillashaw. When he dropped down to try and take on Henry Cejudo, he got absolutely blasted by Cejudo, and it was because he was fragile at 125. It took everything he had to make that drop. I'm very, very concerned that that's the case here with Aldo. You see these pictures of him being insanely sucked out. If you look at his Instagram right now, he's signing pictures and stuff like that. He's signing posters for people, and he looks like death. It's taking everything he's got to get down to 135. I do not think that we're going to get a healthy and rejuvenated Aldo at 135. In fact, if he is in any way compromised, I think that gas tank and durability issue may raise its head here again. Now, that's baked into the line because Marlon Moraes is the favorite. He opened up minus 210. Now, it does look like some money's come in on Aldo, and you can get Marlon Moraes around minus 200 or minus 190 at this point. The comeback on Aldo is plus 165, plus 170. The problem here is Moraes has a bit of the same problem. He was an absolute wrecking machine. He was the champion of the World Series of Fighting before he came over to the UFC. He drops that split decision against Rafael Assunção, and since then he decided his best path to victory is crushing people in the first round. He went on that incredible 3-fight win streak where he KO'd Aljamain Sterling, Jimmy Rivera, and Rafael Assunção all in the first round, except he submitted Rafael Assunção in the first round. So he went off, man. He absolutely went off. Marlon Moraes is one of my favorite fighters. He's got very, very heavy hands. He's got fast combinations and really fast kicks. He's got knockout power in absolutely every single one of his limbs, but he's also a front runner. So I have a bit of a conundrum here in this fight. Truth be told, I came in here wanting to take Marlon Moraes. I was going to be looking at Marlon Moraes inside the distance, something along those lines to give you guys, and I think I need to completely pass on this fight. So Marlon Moraes inside the distance is plus 120. I don't mind that line so much at all, actually. Aldo inside the distance is plus 350. Now, if you want to bet Aldo, you're cooking with some gas there, because what we saw Henry Cejudo do to Marlon Moraes was completely exhaust him. Now, granted, José Aldo does not have the wrestling ability that Henry Cejudo does, and I really think that's what led to it, is Henry laying on him, breaking his posture down, getting the clinch on him, putting his body weight on him, making him carry him. It really gassed Marlon out more than it should have. However, Aldo is going to be the bigger fighter here and does a good job of stealing things from his opponents. He implements good strategies that he learns from people as he goes throughout his fighting career. So it wouldn't shock me if he tried to implement some of that. Both of these guys really, really lay on the leg kicks. Both of these guys really like to work the body. They're actually relatively mirrored in some of the ways that they try to break their opponents down. Marlon Moraes is 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. José Aldo is 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. So he is going to be the bigger fighter in there. The only question is, how well is this weight cut going to go, and how compromised will he be once he gets in there? Marlon Moraes is a huge, chiseled 135er. Aldo is a guy who I don't really know if he can even make the weight class at this point, so he is going to be bigger. If Marlon's got more gas than Aldo, he probably wrecks him. If Aldo has more gas than Moraes, he probably wrecks him. And I mean, we've got to wonder what Marlon Moraes is going to come back like after his loss to Henry Cejudo. It wasn't the life-changing type of KO, but the beating that he put on Moraes, he broke him. He absolutely out-willed Marlon Moraes in that fight. And I actually just put out a tweet after tape studying that fight. I'm such a fan of Henry Cejudo. I can't believe what he did, and I feel like he's getting stiffed when it comes to the Fighter of the Year conversation, because what he did on his run and then what he did to Marlon Moraes after getting beaten to a pulp in the first round and willing his body to continue even though his legs were completely battered and wrecked to come back and win that fight was something else. Incredibly impressive. And I'm a gigantic fan of that man and can't wait to see him back in the cage. But sorry, wrong fighter. We're talking about Marlon Moraes and José Aldo. I just don't have an angle here that I feel comfortable on. I think Marlon Moraes wins this fight, but my brain is telling me that I should count José Aldo out. Well, the record shows that I should never count José Aldo out, and he's not actually done yet. But after we saw, like with TJ, if Aldo drops down as compromised, he could very easily get wrecked here, and this could just be a very bad decision. However, he could drop down and find new life, kind of like Frankie Edgar did. What if he's the bigger fighter, and because he's bigger than Marlon Moraes, he's actually able to put it on Moraes? The way that José Aldo works the body and breaks his opponents down, like he did against Renato Moicano, he could TKO Moraes in the second or the third round himself, because if Moraes gasses out and Aldo works his body while he's running out of gas, it's going to be the same story. Plus, José Aldo's got those flying knees in his arsenal that could end it even faster. Marlon Moraes can knock out anybody in that division in about 16 seconds, as we've seen him do in his 3 fights before the fight with Henry Cejudo. There is no safe angle on this fight. I just don't feel comfortable with any of it. I think José Aldo at plus 170 is a very live dog here, and I would be chomping at the bit to take him if I didn't see how pitiful he looked trying to make 135. I'm scared for the damage that he is doing to his body attempting to make this happen. I'm completely passing from this fight. If you make me make a pick, I'm on Marlon Moraes. I would not suggest parlaying him. If you absolutely made me take something on this fight, I would probably lean with Moraes inside the distance, just because we know how explosive and powerful he is, and he's going to want to come out and make a statement after that loss to Henry Cejudo. Plus, like I said, he's not going to have to fear the wrestling of José Aldo. That's got to be the thing that's the most likely to happen, but this fight is wild, and I expect something crazy and unexpected to happen. Here we go, the big 3, the tripod main event of the best card of the year. Amanda, the Lioness Nunes, the first ever women's champ, the GOAT, is taking on the Iron Lady Germaine de Randamie, and this is a fight, folks. Holy cow. I am shocked at how little attention and love that this fight is getting. The entire world is chanting Amanda Nunes. Everyone I've talked to is hands down picking Amanda Nunes. Everyone is telling me I'm going to parlay Amanda Nunes with every other bet that I make. And I'm warning you right now not to do that. This fight is so much closer than people give it credit for. Amanda Nunes is absolutely incredible. She's got dynamite in her hands. She's fast. She's accurate from range. She's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a Judo black belt, and she knows her way around that octagon. She's knocked out the who's who of the women's Mount Rushmore. She's basically the only face left on the women's Mount Rushmore. Apparently, I'm not able to say that word. But she was the first one that handed Cyborg her walking papers, and the UFC couldn't be happier about that because they were finally rid of Cyborg since they had a new women's greatest of all time, and it was their hometown girl. She knocked out Holly Holm. Let's be real, the shell of Holly Holm in July, with a phenomenal first-round head kick. But before that, she went almost the 5-round distance with Rocky Pennington before a fortuitous TKO in the 5th round. There are holes, ladies and gentlemen. There are holes, and I think some of you can see where I'm going with this, and you are stuck in the car with me as I drive this thing off the freaking cliff. Germaine, the Iron Lady de Randamie, is a underrated fighter. I was the head of the lynch mob. I was the one waving the pitchfork and cheering for her head after she vacated the title when she beat Holly Holm. Back in 2017, before Cyborg came over, they opened up the 145-pound division, and Germaine and Holly fought for the belt. Germaine got a couple of late shots in, which I think points should have been deducted for, and Holly should have won the fight because of that. However, that didn't happen. Since it went to the judges' scorecards, Germaine won the belt. She immediately vacated it, not wanting to fight Cyborg. Now, she has come out since and talked about it a lot, and in her next couple of fights, I really just couldn't stand her. I thought that was a bitch move. She derailed the entire division. She turned her back on all the fans not wanting to take that fight just because she didn't want to fight Cyborg, whatever her reasons were. Turns out she has her own reasons. That's her side of the story. And her demeanor is infectious. She is so happy. She is so cheerful and positive. She is such a sweet person. And I'd like to take this time to publicly apologize for anything bad I may have said about Germaine de Randamie. I know she's never going to listen to this podcast, but I'm a huge fan of her now. The way that she handled that, the way that she handled the backlash of all the fans wanting her kicked from the UFC because of that, I mean, all props to her. She handled it with class, and she's been nothing but awesome since. She's also been nothing but awesome since in her fight career. So the very first thing that you hear about is that this is a rematch. She fought Amanda Nunes back in 2013. She got mounted in round 1 and TKO'd immediately. Now, Germaine de Randamie is the most decorated kickboxer the UFC has ever seen. Women's kickboxer, at the very least. She's got a total of 46 wins, 30 of those by KO in women's kickboxing. And she also has Muay Thai and boxing experience before she started her MMA career. She gets over here. She has no idea what she's doing against a black belt in Amanda Nunes. She gets mounted and has no idea how to get her off. She has not been taken down since. Everybody keeps talking about how her ground game is her weakness. Her ground game is her weakness. This is going to be the same exact fight. Amanda Nunes is going to come out, put her on her back, and maul her again just like... No, stop it. Stop it. She has worked on her takedown defense. She has worked on her clinch game. And you can see those in her fights with Holly Holm and Raquel Pennington massively. Rocky, who all she does is grind on people and take people down, could not get the takedown on Germaine. Germaine is going to have a height and reach advantage on champion Amanda Nunes. She's more comfortable at 145 than she is at 135. She's going to be the bigger, longer fighter here. And believe it or not, I think she is the better striker. Now, if Amanda Nunes is able to get inside and clip her on the chin, don't get me wrong. She's got speed. She's got power. You cannot doubt the GOAT here. But one more time, my balls are out. I am going to bet on Germaine de Randamie. Right now, Germaine de Randamie is a plus 250 underdog. And I am going to lock that up and run with that number. Because this fight is so much closer than that. When you're saying that somebody is a plus 250 underdog, you're saying they have a 28% chance of winning this fight. And I would cap this fight more around 60-40, honestly. I think there's a very good margin here betting Germaine de Randamie. Everyone is going to tell you to parlay the crap out of Amanda Nunes, and don't get me wrong, she may still damn well win this thing. But Germaine is an expert at controlling range. If Amanda Nunes can't close the distance and she can't get those takedowns, this thing is going to stay standing. And if this is a kickboxing match, we are in the Iron Lady's world. She is going to be the more experienced of the two fighters, believe it or not, and she will have the length advantage. She has an excellent arsenal of inside shots. She's got really good clinch work. She fires elbows. She's got good dirty boxing. She fires knees from the clinch. She works well behind her jab. Her in and out movement and footwork is incredibly impressive to me. She actually fights really well moving backwards as well. She feels the flow of the fight. If Amanda darts in and tries to pressure her right away, Germaine will simply back up and circle, and she will go with that flow. She's not going to get startled in there. She's not going to welcome a firefight in there like Cyborg did, which led to her getting knocked out. That's not what she does. Germaine will take this thing slow and her pace. She forces her opponents to fight at her slow pace, and that is what has allowed her to win. She also has dynamite in her hands. She KO'd several of her UFC opponents, and most recently Aspen Ladd. We talked about how that may have been a slightly early stoppage, but I do think that she would have gotten a TKO win about 5 seconds later if the ref didn't step in, because she cracked Ladd hard, and Ladd was the rightful number 1 contender who we are very high on. I just see a lot of different ways that Germaine is going to cause problems from Nunes, and if you want to bet Nunes, that's fine, you go right ahead. You might win. Amanda Nunes might actually, well, more than likely, will still win this fight, but you are not going to be comfortable about it. Germaine is not going to be another first-round knockout loss like everyone expects. I'll bet you this thing gets into the championship rounds, and I'll bet you those of you who bet Amanda Nunes are going to be clutching your pearls and hanging on to that ticket, biting your nails, nervous, sweating, because JDR has taken a couple rounds off of Amanda Nunes, and you're not comfortable. I'm taking JDR plus 250. Our next fight is the featherweight title fight between Max freaking Holloway, the Blessed Express, taking on Alexander Volkanovski, the second fighter out of City Kickboxing on the night. We talked about his teammate Kai Kara-France a little bit earlier, training partner of the phenomenal 185-pound champion Israel Adesanya. This is a good fight. This is a damn good fight. So Alexander Volkanovski has the biggest freaking head in the division. I'm not kidding. You wait until he faces off with Max Holloway and take a look. He's got a gigantic noggin. I don't think you can knock this guy out. Now, he does have 1 KO loss on his record from back in 2013, but I just don't believe it. He used to be a rugby player. He fights at 145 and somehow weighed as high as 220 pounds back when he was playing rugby. His style reminds me a whole lot of Dustin Poirier's. He gets in your face, he's aggressive, constant pressure, constant movement, leg kicks, he circles, he keeps you on your heels, and he will just box you up. Now, he's another one who lets the finish come to him. He's got 11 KOs of his 20 wins, and he's gone to decision 6 times. He does KO his opponents relatively regularly, but that's just because they wilt under him. What's crazy about this, though, is that that's the same exact style that Max Holloway has. Max Holloway, on the flip side of this thing, is going to have a significant height and reach advantage, and I'll just be real here. There's not a whole lot for me to talk about. I don't know who the hell is going to win this fight. I don't like this fight, and I don't like the odds as far as a betting perspective. I'm going to watch this thing wide-eyed with my glass of Fireball, hopefully up on a couple of these plus 250 giant-ass underdogs that we're taking, and just enjoy this one. Volkanovski is about a plus 150 underdog right now. Max Holloway is a minus 170 favorite. I do not step in front of Max Holloway. The dude is undefeated at 145 since 2013. I mean, he doesn't lose at 145. He's huge for the division. His gas tank is second to none. He's finally got an opponent in Volkanovski who can match his gas tank. However, I don't know if Volkanovski hits as hard as Dustin Poirier did, which that's what gave him trouble when he fought up at 155, and Dustin was a bigger, stronger opponent and able to hit him harder and derail him rather than his opponent wilting under his constant pressure. That was the issue. He took damage from Dustin Poirier. Has he fully recovered from that? I think so, but still, we don't know entirely for sure. I just do not bet against Max Holloway at 145 pounds. He is the greatest 145 pounder we have ever seen, and honestly, if he gets by Volkanovski, I don't think he's going anywhere for a long time. I also don't want to step in front of Volkanovski. He's a very live dog. I made the mistake of betting against him on José Aldo his last fight, and I shouldn't have. He is a cut above everybody else. City Kickboxing is the shit. They are coming out of the woodwork. They're taking belts. I wouldn't be surprised if Volkanovski finds a way to get this win, but I honestly don't know how he gets around the height and reach advantage of Max Holloway. Both of these guys are going to try to break each other with cardio, and nobody's ever done that to Max Holloway. So if Volk can do it, congrats. I don't know that he can, but I'm not putting minus 170 against this guy because he is a freak. Enjoy this fight. I will look at the total when it comes out because that's something that I would be curious to look at. I don't know that either of these guys is going to break, and if they do, it will be much later in the night. So I'm going to be looking at an over. Even if it's like a 3.5, I'm looking over. So we'll see where that comes out. And that brings us to the big kahuna, one of the most anticipated fights of the entire freaking year. This fight has been a long time coming, and I cannot wait to see what happens here. This is a very, very naturally occurring rivalry This is two guys that legitimately don't like each other, two guys that have very similar skill sets, two guys that have identical records. Kamaru Usman takes on Colby Chaos Covington. What a fight. This is... it really doesn't get any better than this. I mean, Kamaru Usman was the guy that was, second in line, basically. But because Colby got injured, he got the shot against Tyron Woodley, and he made good on that title shot. He was able to take the strap from Tyron Woodley. And because of what happened after that, the weird contract negotiations, whatever was going on, the UFC doesn't like Colby. They strip him of the interim belt. I mean, he beats Rafael Dos Anjos in a completely one-sided absolute war where Dos Anjos took a beating for 25 minutes, and the UFC strips him of that title rather than giving him the shot against, Tyron Woodley, and Kamaru takes the belt. And finally, we have the culmination of all that. I am so excited for the trash talk over the next couple of weeks. Colby Covington is a guy who I've discovered I actually really like. Some of those interviews coming out where he talks about how he created the character that he plays, it's more common knowledge these days that he doesn't actually act that way. He's actually a really good guy, and he started playing up the whole MAGA Trump thing so that people would care about him, because the UFC was actually going to drop him win, lose, or draw because he didn't move the needle. Everyone thought he was boring, even though he was incredibly skilled. Well, now he's got this fun character that moves the needle and people pay attention to. On top of that, he's got a deadly skill set, and I can't wait to see what happens here. So Kamaru Usman is going to have the size advantage. He's 1 inch bigger, he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, and he seems like the more physical fighter of the two. He's 32 years old. Colby Chaos Covington is 5'11". He's 31. Like I said, they are both 15-1. Both of those losses also, ironically, are by submission. Now, Kamaru Usman talks all the time about knocking people out. When he first started in MMA, he knocked everybody out, man. His first 5 wins. His first 5 wins were by knockout. And then he got to the point where he was facing better people and he had to rely on his wrestling. He got into the UFC, and he's only knocked out one guy at the UFC level, and that was the broken Sergio Moraes. I am not a believer in Kamaru Usman's power. He's got a reach advantage here, so that will pose an issue. He throws these wild, long hooks with his long-ass arms to close the distance, get on people, and grind them up against the cage. He has a massive, massive cardio advantage over most of his opponents. This might be the first time that he faces somebody who will not wilt under his cardio. We all know about bedroom cardio Colby Covington. The dude is the captain of American Top Team, and what he did to both Rafael Dos Anjos and Robbie Lawler was phenomenal. Absolutely incredible performance. He shut down these two veterans who are excellent strikers, both with excellent wrestling abilities, and he beat them to a pulp over the course of 25 minutes. Same thing with Demian Maia. He completely imposed his will over Demian Maia. And Kamaru Usman actually got bailed out by the referee against Demian Maia when Maia got his back. I would have been very curious to see what happened if Demian Maia was given that couple minutes to work on Kamaru Usman's back. It was one of the most egregious stand-ups that we've seen in the cage in a long, long time. So both of them have wins over Rafael Dos Anjos. Honestly, I think that Colby's win was more impressive. They both have wins over Demian Maia. I also think that Colby's win was more impressive. Now, Kamaru Usman did beat Tyron Woodley, and while that is a better name on the record, I think, at this stage than Robbie Lawler's is, Tyron Woodley was not himself that night. Tyron Woodley tried to look for one big shot and stayed on his heels and was willing to play the cage grappling game and wait for his opening, and it just never came. That was a terrible, terrible, terrible game plan. And I basically think Tyron Woodley gifted Kamaru Usman the belt the way he fought that night. He's an incredible fighter. He's got more skills than that. And if he had even tried, that would have been a hell of a fight. It was unfortunately a very bad night because we bet Tyron Woodley that night, and I had to cry a little bit as I watched him hand my money away. So this fight, both these guys are high tier wrestlers with cardio for days. Kamaru's probably got the power advantage. Colby, I believe, has the speed advantage. And I think Colby is a far better striker. I think that what Colby did, like I said, to Robbie Lawler really opened my eyes as to the level of mixed martial artist he is. He has been putting in some serious work. Kamaru can close the distance and land some big heavy shots, big elbows from the clinch. He works the body while you're up against the cage. These are all great things to drain your opponent and drain their gas. But Colby has the wrestling ability, I think, to neutralize Kamaru Usman. So I think this will be a back and forth wrestling match. I don't think it will be Kamaru in total control like he's used to. And I think Colby will have his moments. I also think there are going to be moments where they will be in space. And the one thing that Colby does is he never stops. So this is not like Tyrone Woodley that's going to need to sit back and reset after a grappling exchange. Colby comes forward and starts peppering you with shots and punches and never lets you feel comfortable. So I honestly believe that Colby Chaos Covington is going to dethrone Kamaru Usman as the champion. I think there's massive value on Colby Covington at this stage. He is a plus 160 underdog right now, and I am all over it. I'm taking Colby Covington to win this thing. I know Kamaru Usman has the size advantage. I know he's a machine. I know he's a monster, but I think Colby's got better cardio, believe it or not, if not better, comparable, and he's got comparable wrestling to Kamaru Usman. He's better credentialed. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he's the better wrestler at this stage in their lives, but he's a D1 wrestler where Kamaru Usman was a D2 wrestler. I do think that Colby Covington is coming out of the better camp. Historically speaking anyway, American Top Team is one of the best camps in MMA. Hard Knock 365 is getting on the map simply because of Kamaru Usman. I think they're going to have a game plan. I absolutely think they're going to have a game plan, and I think Colby will out-wrestle Kamaru Usman, and he will put hands on Kamaru Usman, and I will be very curious to see what happens when Kamaru hits adversity, because realistically, he hasn't faced adversity except for that fight with Damian Maia, and the ref bailed him out of that one. When Colby Covington is peppering him in the face, and he can't get in on a clean takedown because this guy can actually defend the takedown and then keeps on landing shots, is Kamaru going to get frustrated? And I don't think he's got the kind of power that it takes to knock out a guy like Colby Covington. Colby's never wobbled. He's never broken. He's never been hurt. I don't think that Kamaru is going to be able to land clean enough or have the kind of raw power that it would take to put someone like him down. So I don't see a Hail Mary bomb working either. This is a close fight. Honestly, I think this is a pick'em. I side with Colby Covington. I do think that he'll win, but the fact that we're getting plus 160 on him when I think this is realistically a coin flip fight, we've got huge line value on that, and I will ride to the bank with Colby Covington. We are taking some shots this weekend, folks. Thank you for sticking with me through that thing. That was the longest episode of the Die Hard MMA podcast to date. Let's recap those picks, shall we? We are kicking the night off with our best bet. We've got Kai Kara France, the 2-unit banger at minus 145 and minus 150. We are going to take a stab with Ben Saunders to land a knee or body kick and cripple Matt Brown in his comeback fight. We're going to roll with Ian the Hurricane Heinisch at minus 138 to bounce back. We're going to take Neal by decision at plus 215 and hope that Mike Perry can just hang in there with him. We're going to do the same thing with Petr Yan. We're looking for him to win a decision over Urijah Faber. We got that at plus 165. We are going to roll with the big dog Germaine de Randamie at plus 250 to dethrone the GOAT Amanda Nunes. And we are looking for and new for the second time of the night, Colby Chaos Covington defeating Kamaru Usman. That's right. Massive value, massive dog lines. This weekend is gonna be crazy and I'm gonna have some fireball. Let's freaking roll.